Hello. When we arrived at the hospital, the first thing you said was, "I'm sorry. My brother, you have nothing to be sorry about. You came from nothing and you competed on the highest level against one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. For 4 rounds, you took his best shots, but you never went down and you never stopped fighting back. The heart you displayed last night could never be taught, and I've never been so proud to be your coach, your friend, and your fan. You did not fail. Max prevailed. And if it was ever possible to win in defeat, you did it last night." When Buster Douglas came in as the underdog, taking shots clean from Mike Tyson, he fell concussed against the canvas. Many thought the fight would have been over then and there, but his vision, his purpose, his heart was bigger than the blow he just took. In memory of his mother, with it he mustered the strength and courage he needed to shock the world. No one thought he could beat Iron Mike, but with heart and conviction fueled by his mother, he overcame what was said to be impossible. Heart has not just been the key to many victories, it has moved the audience on a much deeper level. For the suffering that warrior underwent, it makes us look back at our own struggles and almost laughter. The burden of our world feels lighter for us humans under the constant conflict propagated by nature. When we see those who rise from great suffering, it puts our day at a bit more ease. We feel more inclined, more motivated to rise to our own path, our own calling. That is why stories of overcoming struggle, displays of heart, are so valuable to us. They remind us that if one human being can, why not I? And that's what makes all the difference. What is the risk, though? The damage taken, or worse, the possibility of losing one's life for a vision bigger than themselves. It's a tightrope acting as a hyper-catalyst for purpose, for legacy. It's interesting. You take remarkable warriors, a supreme warrior like Tyron Woodley, but he is rarely congratulated for his greatness. It's too easy for him. There is no story. His victories are either too quick or too safely, methodically secured with little to no flair. The lack of peaks and troughs makes it a simple and short story to tell. It is the tragedy of being too good, too scientific. But on the contrary, fighters not near his level will have the world turn their gaze. Darren Elkins with an incredible display of heart bringing Joe Rogan to tears. Justin Gaethje, despite being unable to overcome the highest caliber contenders, he won Fight of the Night 3 times, Performance of the Night 2 times, Fight of the Year and Comeback of the Year from World MMA Awards. If you look over his career, despite not being able to overcome the highest caliber in the UFC, this man has made a profitable legacy for himself with heart alone. Beyond that, he's moved the entire audience each time. That is what heart does. With health as its sacrifice, it may compensate for the missing inches needed for victory. But beyond that, it moves the human heart, making our own struggle feel a tad bit lighter. That is what Brian Ortega attempted. He may have had a knowledge advantage in jiu-jitsu, but Max Holloway had what he needed to avoid Ortega's game to continue playing his own. As a result, the onslaught following was very one-sided. The only chip Ortega had to compensate for his holds was his heart. Despite the difference in overall mixed martial arts understanding, no one can take that away from Brian Ortega. His vision, his mission to help and inspire others. He felt his life was worth his cause and he was willing to give it in hopes he can make the world a better place. It's as Henry Gracie had said, if you could win in defeat, Brian Ortega did just that. Not every hero overcomes their struggle, but our heart should go out to everyone who at least tried, for that alone requires a very rare courage. Now, the outcome was pretty natural, I felt. I knew Holloway would have a huge edge. You never really know what can happen in a bout, but I did not think it would be that one-sided. From the very beginning, what Max possessed was a knowledge advantage, thus a skill advantage. The same way the Gracies smashed an entire era with their knowledge advantage of jiu-jitsu, Max Holloway learned what he needed to stifle that style, then picked Brian Ortega apart. It was a striking advantage. Both are disciplines that can go infinitely in depth, for that is the nature of all disciplines. But now comes the real question. What exactly was that advantage? To understand, I'd like to thank you for joining me as we take a closer glance. If you notice, Max's punches lack intention. He can commit with a harder shot, but for the most part, he was just touching Ortega with a tight, relaxed form. He would beat Ortega to the punch, but still commanded respect because he had clean body mechanics from the ground up. He was not desperate to end it with one shot. He wasn't afraid of getting hit or afraid of Ortega striking. Really, he simply just trusted his reactions and touched Ortega, beating him to the punch. In this instance, Brian's method was often a check hook, pretty textbook, but he couldn't get the timing for it. Why? First, of course, the double jab muffled his vision, and second, the cross, it just came in way too quick. Tight economy of motion, beating Ortega's less explosive physique and wider range of motion. It is a similar premise as to why Yoel Romero beat Luke Rockhold's check hook. Whitaker would be a strong example of a check used effectively in MMA, timing and footwork without the speed disadvantage. Here, a display of Max's comfort and reaction time versus Ortega's striking. Ortega pumps his jab and Max pulls it. He's waiting for that big right hand. The moment he sees it, he slips to the outside, mitigating potential follow-up. From here, how does Max Holloway find a shot? Framing with his shoulder and left hand as he recovers from the slip, Max creates a new angle, swapping to southpaw. From here, he completely catches Ortega off guard, winging a wide southpaw lead hook. From here, he steps back in orthodox. Max Holloway has said he gets a lot of inspiration from Vasily Lomachenko. This next sequence highlights just that with his understanding of angles. The right cross enters, then as he follows with his jab, notice how he actually stepped out. When you pair the jab with the angle he took, he's actually moving out of Brian Ortega's line of focus. In the moment where Ortega turned to find Max, he did not see the next shot coming until it was too late. From here, he switches to southpaw and tries to follow up with his new backhand. Ortega himself has switched to southpaw and he tries to catch Max, but Max took another angle, switching back to orthodox, stepping to the outside. He effectively avoided that line of attack. Here we see something reminiscent of Nick Diaz, taunting with his hands. Both Nick and Nate would often slap to throw their opponents off, as it has a different range of attack and different angle of attack from a punch. Trapping the lead as he enters with a slap, this throws Ortega off. Meanwhile, Max parried the lead as he transitioned to his cross. It's very sneaky as to how he used a taunt to guise his real intention. Max Holloway truly is a sponge of technique, a copycat ninja of mixed martial arts. From this alone, you should have a feel for the real advantage Max Holloway had over Brian Ortega. He had a better sense for angles, better footwork. He knew Ortega's tools and simply used tighter form to time himself against its window over and over again. In this case, Brian's tool was often a check hook trying to catch Max as he entered. Now this has worked very well for Brian, often adjusting between that and to an elbow instead. Unfortunately though, reading and feeling the window, Max has always been very good at timing tight shots against those who either have a less explosive build or a wider form. Brian Ortega had both in proportion to Max Holloway, which is why, with jabs and a clean cross, Max's reaction time and sense for angles did the rest. Not every hero rises from the ashes. Versus the pride of Hawaii, it seemed hard could not withstand a significant technical advantage. Blessed era, one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters ever. And I'm sure for Brian Ortega, this will provide a significant learning experience. I cannot wait to see how he patches his holds. For that, I'm certain of. Brian will grow from this experience. He will get better from this. And as the hero who seeks to help and inspire others, I'm sure he'll continue to do just that throughout that process. Thank you, Max Holloway and Brian Ortega, for the privilege to watch. If you'd like more from me, please subscribe and hit the notifications. Thank you if you did. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. It's good karma. And until next time.